Hello, everyone. Welcome to the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance webinar. We are thrilled that you are here with us today. We're going to give everyone a couple of minutes to get into the webinar. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know your name and what organization you're from. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about empowering the next generation of energy leaders. So introduce yourselves in the chat, and we will get started soon. While we're waiting on others to get in, please mute yourselves as we prepare to start the webinar. Hello, Kai. Hello, Jacqueline. Hello, Dr. Hamid. Hello, Kimberly Beck. Hello, John. If I'm missing you, don't be offended. The chat scrolls really fast, as you know, so I may be missing a few names, but thank you all for attending. We will get started shortly. Hello, Steve. Ariel, hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance. Hello, Scott. Teresa, hello. Hello, Robin. Thank you. Thank you all for attending. We have a great presentation for you all today. We have some dynamic presenters, and we are very excited about the material they will be sharing with the Alliance members. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, welcome everyone. We're so happy you're able to join us. Michelle, you can go to the next slide. This webinar is being brought to you by the Interstate Renewable Energy Council, which is a national nonprofit working to accelerate the growth of clean energy and energy efficiency. We do this through state regulatory reform, local initiatives, and workforce development. We are here to build connections amongst job seekers, students, employers, education providers, and community-based organizations. We also provide technical assistance to advance the innovative workforce development solutions. We not only do all of those great things, but we also award nationally recognized credentials to the Clean Energy Training Program. This work is funded by the Bank of America, so we're very grateful for their support. Again, just some ground rules. Please mute yourselves. The Q&A tab is available. Feel free to add your question there throughout the webinar. And the last 30 minutes have been designated for question and discussion, so we will address all questions at the end of the webinar. Artificial intelligence is not accepted, nor do we allow any of the AI note takers or bot participation. Those tools will be removed. Closed captioning is available. Please select Show Caption from the controls at the bottom of the toolbar to enable. Michelle, you can go to the next slide. Today's agenda, I've given you some brief information about the Interstate Renewable Energy Council and the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance. That information will be presented in coming slides, but the feature presentation is building workforce partnerships from tribal lands to rural schools and advancing renewable energy through community collaboration. Michelle, you can go to the next slide, please. I am Janelle Hills Thomas. I'm the Senior Director of Equitable Workforce Strategies, and the workforce team is led by Dr. Cynthia Finley, who is the Vice President of Workforce and Strategic Innovation at IREC. Below is a list of our presenters. We have Mr. Eric Curran, who is the Director of Marketing and Education at Secure Solar Futures, Mr. Matthew Rose, who is the Dean of Industrial Tech at Mountain Empire Community College, Ms. Ella Nielsen, who is the Program Director at the American Solar Energy Society, and Ms. Sarah Towns, who is the CFO and Zero Emissions Network Director. Thank all of you for participating and presenting on today's webinar. We're very thankful and grateful to have you. You can go to the next slide, please, Michelle. If you're on this webinar, again, thank you for attending, giving us a piece of your day, but you're likely to know that good workforce development doesn't happen by accident. In order to rapidly scale a diverse and sustainable clean energy future, we need to leverage best practices, resources, as well as create strong partnerships. And especially in today's time, those partnerships are so important. We continue to work to connect the dots and address clean energy workforce development more holistically by focusing on every aspect of the workforce development landscape, from the new learner and worker recruitment through employer development and retention of employees. That's so important. Michelle, you can go to the next slide. Our strategic areas of focus for the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance is training, education, and credentialing, funding and program design, recruitment and support of workers and learners, and employer recruitment and retention. If you have attended our webinars in the past, you know that we are embarking on every strategic focus and provide webinars and information that align with those strategic areas. Michelle, you can go to the next slide, please. If you are not aware or have not visited IREC's Green Workforce Connect, this is a platform where we are connecting job seekers, employers, training providers, and contractors to support highly trained and inclusive workforce. Gwen will be dropping the link to that platform in the chat, so please feel free to visit that platform as we integrate solar resources. On the platform, we have solar training providers and a weatherization information from the first iteration of the platform. You can also, Michelle, you can go to the next slide, please. You can also subscribe to the IREC newsletter by scanning this QR code or just finding us on LinkedIn. And we will be happy to accept you and have you post any information that you have coming up within your organization or you would like the Alliance members to know about. Now, I'll turn it over to Michelle. You can go to the next slide, to our partners who will be speaking to us about this great partnership with Mountain Empire Community College. Mr. Eric Curran and Matthew, if you will, please come on camera and share your great information. Thank you.
Hope everybody's doing well today. I do apologize. My camera sometimes gets the window behind me, so I apologize if it appears as though I'm on witness protection at times. But I do want to share some of this information. I think it's a great partnership that we have with Secure Solar Futures to help promote solar in our region of Southwest Virginia, but additionally, it really addresses a skills gap that they have needed in quite some time. Michelle, you can go to the next slide. So really, how did this start? How did we get to where we are today? And I want to give a little bit of background in our area, and then if Eric wants to chime in, I'll kind of share a little more. So we're predominantly one of the main coal field producing regions in Southwest Virginia. So between us and Kentucky for many years, it was predominantly coal as the driver of the workforce as well as the energy provider in this area. And obviously, with the decline of coal and other sources coming in, not only did we need to find new sources of energy, but we also had to find new employment ways. Now, we have seen over the past 20 years, 30 years or so, substantial population decline as some of our best and our brightest have left us and went to other areas of the nation for employment and other opportunities. And so, as we begin to look at this, and our economic development partners um, looked at this some time ago, they really come up with the idea of focusing on, other aspects. So there's tourism, there's other things. But part of that is too is, at the college, they really focused on some ideas with alternative energy. And they had done some of the things that you might think. And I really want to kind of get to this. So Michelle, next slide, please. This was one of our first real ventures into solar as a classroom, but also as an opportunity to share solar to our region. This is what we leveling call Sparky. This is our first iteration of Sparky. So inside of this was about an 8 kW trailer with enough battery backup, probably about 11 kW backup. And this trailer was, of course, built as a collaborative effort with our welding students as well as our electrical students. And it served a lot of purpose. Not only did we go and share a lot about solar, but this trailer was used to power events such as our remote area medical. It powered events such as things that we call, such as home craft days, which is a music event and crafts and different things that bring several thousand people into our college. But it is one of those things where I think that we were able to get some resources. There was a lot of hesitation in our area about solar, and this really started a lot of conversations prior to us having conversations with Secure Solar Futures to this point. Um, and so it really is useful for us, and it served its purpose. However, as time went on, it did get hit by lightning. There were some things happen, and with COVID and trying to get everybody to tour in that tight space, we decided to do something different. So, Michelle, next slide. And you'll see this later on. I didn't want to go into much detail, but I want to also let Eric kind of share a little bit. We had a meeting with Secure Solar Futures, and they had a brilliant idea about some ways they could help our local school systems save some money. And Eric, if you want to kind of hit on that, I'll let you kind of describe that process or what you all have do is generally, and then I'll kind of fill in the gap on how we looked at our labor and workforce.
Sure, Matt. Thanks so much, and thanks to IREC for hosting this. I'm so glad to be able to talk to you all. It's a challenging time for clean energy and workforce development, but I think we all know that solar is the wave of the future. There's no stopping it. It can be slowed down a little bit, which is a shame because the country needs the electricity as much as we need the clean energy. So I think it's not good energy policy to try to stop the one source of energy that's the fastest to build. Solar can be built in a year or two. But folks in Southwest Virginia know about energy, unlike some folks in Washington, D.C., because they've been providing energy to the economy for more than a century. And so our company, which is also based in Virginia, specializes in solar for K through 12 public schools. And an area of opportunity that we saw a few years back was the rural parts of Virginia, especially in southwestern Virginia, which is historically a coal-producing region. And this was a part of the state that had very little solar power and also was an opportunity for workforce development. Young people were looking for new careers that would allow them to stay in the area because people like the area. They like living there. It's beautiful. Their families are there. Their families have been there a long time. And young people don't necessarily want to have to pick up and move to a big market. They would really like to be able to have a good job near where they grew up. So our company, which I said focuses on K through 12 schools, we started talking to schools in Wise County, which is a very rural coalfield area. And we figured out a way to put solar on their schools using a power purchase agreement. I'm sure many of you know what this is, but I think according to Generation 180, which tracks these things, 8 or 9 out of every 10 K through 12 schools in America get solar through a power purchase agreement. And I apologize for those of you for whom this is old hat, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows what it is. The traditional way to get solar on a school or anywhere else is to buy solar panels. Well, the obvious disadvantage of that is it's expensive. And I've never seen a school division that has a budget line item to purchase a lot of solar panels, maybe a few, maybe as a demonstration, but not enough to make a difference in their electricity generation and their demand. So a solar power purchase agreement is more or less a service agreement where a solar company like mine, a solar developer, will install and continue to own the equipment at the customer's site. We also operate it and maintain it and report on it and keep it going for a period of 20 or 25 years. And during that time, we're responsible for everything. We do all of the financing, which means that the school gets the solar for no upfront capital costs, which removes a huge barrier to going solar. And then after the period of the agreement has expired, the solar panels will revert to ownership by the school, and they can hire us to help maintain it, or they can do it themselves. But the solar panels should have another 10 or 15 years of useful lifespan there. And I see a question in the chat about who am I with? I'm with a company called Secure Solar Futures. We're a commercial scale solar developer located in Stanton, Virginia. And so we specialize in K through 12 schools, and we do nearly every single project with schools through a power purchase agreement. And so we were working with schools in Wise County, and we talked to them about also add-on programs that go with school solar. So schools these days, when they go solar, they expect more than just solar panels on the roof. They want some educational components. They want energy monitoring they can use in their classrooms. They maybe want some STEM education. And then in the case of Wise County, they were interested in workforce development. So we started talking to them about constructing a workforce development program that would train some of their high school students to install solar panels using the solar installation on their own schools. And that's when we started talking to Mountain Empire Community College, which serves their area. And that's where Matt came in. So Matt, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Yeah, and I thank you, and you did a great job explaining that. So, next slide, Michelle. So, what has typically happened when we sat down with Secure Solar Futures? We looked at the needs of the students, and we looked at what is really important for us in our region. Of course, you know, they have the idea of we're going to put solar panels on the roofs. This is going to help defray some increasing energy costs in our region for students or for the school systems and help the students, but also they need a workforce. They need folks who can assist and help out. And that's where we had conversations. We had conversations about our workforce development pipeline. And really in our electrical and HVAC programs, which we call energy technology, there we had a lot of students, but we also, and I think Eric brought up a good point, we have a lot of students, but we had students who they couldn't see the pathway. They couldn't see, you know, I'm going to quit my job right now that's paying me X number of dollars an hour to take a job for an internship and potentially an unproven technology. And then I've got to figure out what I want to do. And so we had some pretty frank conversations. And as Eric said, you know, a lot of that comes out of our region is very much a region of, if you can, folks would rather live around us and live their families. They're very much family oriented. And so we shared some of the ideas that really, in order for this to be successful, is we've got to win what I call that kitchen table conversation with mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, and really sit down and say, you know, not only is this a viable career path for your student, they can, you know, they can really be successful here. This is an up and coming industry, and they had to tie that in. And so we had some discussions, and some of that came about. We also have a solar installer career studies certificate that came out of that initial conversation, and it's designed heavily for grid tie solar systems. So the students, they're going to learn how to install panels, they're going to learn how to program and take care of the inverters, bring those online. They're going to learn how to do the proper wiring associated with it, in any National Electric Code sections that refer back to how do you install those panels. Those having that degree program gets somebody in a very short period of time. They can do this in a semester and get up and running. Now, we have built that in, and certainly that is something that our students need, and it's something that can help our students gain the necessary knowledge and skills. But there's some other components there as well, and those are incredibly important to us. So next slide, Michelle. And so we look at our workforce development initiatives. How do you all think of, we look at our situation? How do we look at our students and what they're needing? So we come up with the idea of again, discussing this and training high school students in their junior and senior year. Over the summer, we would do a training for them. And next slide, please. And that is where we are at the time. So we had, again, those students who they have their jobs, they're not going to switch. We do have those high school students who are already coming to us anyway. So if we train them, and we train them in solar panel installation, we train them in, hopefully they have OSHA 10, but if they don't, we get them OSHA certified, and we train them and we give them that internship component. All of our programs have an internship component that students need to complete. They also have those courses and different things. So we were actually able to train the students on how to become entry level installers. You know, we're not turning out 5, 10, 15-year students. We're training out where somebody can go in, make a difference on the job site, and we're able to give them credit for not only the internship, but for their OSHA 10 component. And we're also able to give them credit for the solar panel installation class that we teach, because it covers the same material. So these students were for free earning at least 9 college credits in a very short term time, where they are able to go for 8 hours a day, get trained, and then go to the job site for the Secure Solar Futures and their contractors and make an immediate impact on it. And this has been hugely successful, because it really, the goal was, how do we prove in this region that this career is viable? You know, as much as our instructor has pushed solar and different things, he always shows the students he's got a quite impressive solar array at his house. And one of the first discussions he has with them is, my power bill is about $15 a month. And in a region where, if you look at the news or you search in Southwest Virginia, you'll see there's a lot of talk about increasing power bills and what impact that has on the public and different things. And so by doing this, it really helped us look at this a little more. And Eric, do you have anything you want to add on some of that from your side that maybe I didn't get to share?
Yeah, I would just say that one thing we've learned about working in rural coalfield areas is that solar is not necessarily everybody's favorite source of energy. They've heard myths from various sources that solar was what killed the coal industry, which, as we know, is not true. It was just the international market in coal and the depletion of resources and automation in the industry that cut jobs. But there are people who say, oh, blame it on the clean energy people. And so we had to be very sensitive to what folks think, what they want, and their attitudes about energy. So when we went into Southwest Virginia, we didn't go in with our main pitch as fighting climate change or creating clean energy. Instead, as Matthew said, our main pitch was this will help schools save money, and it will also help create good jobs in energy for people who want to stay in the area. And so we had to show, as Matt said, that these jobs actually, that somebody in the area was buying solar so that there would be some need for someone to install solar. And that was the real challenge. And that's why we started with their own schools so that they wouldn't be working an internship, getting on the job training on some sort of theoretical project, but they would be working on a real project that was going to make a difference to an institution they were already familiar with. So I'll pass it back to Matt.
Yeah, and next slide. So this is a little more in depth on our solar internship and what it looks like and how it works. And exactly, we really tried to show in Southwest Virginia, solar is not a environmental argument. It strictly is an economic argument of what it allows and what it does. Um, and it really helps them understand that, and they're able to apply it. And so, it's one of these things where, again, I've kind of hit most of those, but one of the other things that we didn't really share is, Secure Solar Futures and others, they went above and beyond to make sure students had proper equipment and other things. We worked with our local WIOA representative to make sure that there was boots and work belts and all these sort of things that were in place for students, so that a student who maybe, we have a large amount of poverty in our region. We have a large amount of Pell eligible students, probably more than most other community colleges around. And so sometimes funding and different things is an issue. And so by doing that, we help to remove barriers for the students so that they can begin to get a pathway into the career field as well as the educational field, and make sure they were successful. And one of the things that they did was actually they paid a pretty good wage for us. They paid about $17 an hour the first year and different things. And of course, for a summer job for a high school student, that's a really good rate. And it's something, especially when it's in your career field. For us, that's typically not something that they would normally be able to obtain. And so that got a lot of interest going, and it got a lot of students who were able to do that. And so they were really looking at, well, what does this mean to us? And how does this work for us? And so by doing that, we were able to show them this career field. And a matter of fact, out of that first cohort, they still have a couple of employees that are still employed with God and working in different things in different capacities, as well as they're able to grow. And so we're looking forward to it. We're actually, and I'll kind of mention this. Next slide, please. We do have an intern. There's one of them that was hired on. I don't want to get too far ahead, but there's one of our interns as well that worked. He was one of our initial students. He really enjoyed the career. He enjoyed what he had learned, and he made it a true career for him. And so he's employed and working and really enjoying that a lot. And Eric, I don't know if you had any interaction with Anthony, but I want to at least give you an opportunity to at least speak on it if you want to.
Yeah. So I never got to talk to Anthony. Well, I think I talked to Mason, who was the other intern. Mason talked to everybody, the UK Guardian, some cable TV network from Germany. Like, people were so interested in the news media that we were helping young people from coalfield areas trained as jobs as solar installers. Um, and I think Anthony and Mason both became kind of good at talking to the news media, which is maybe a side benefit of being in this program. But we've got a little bit of a story about Anthony after this slide, which I think is quite interesting.
Yes, go ahead and do the next slide, please.
So this is from a publication called Cardinal News, which covers Southwest Virginia. And you can, I think there's a link in there. You can read more about it if you want to read the piece, but just we pulled some things out that thought would really interest you. Here's a quote from Anthony. The things I learned in the apprenticeship program, I'm still doing day to day. He did take a program with our contractor, which is called God Electric. If you know anything about how our industry works, our company, Secure Solar Futures, is a developer, but then we hire an engineering, procurement, and construction company depending on the project and the area. And so that company in this area is called Got Electric, and they do business in Maryland and Virginia. But Anthony got to do much more than just install solar panels on his own high school. There was a poultry farm and a YMCA nearby. Matt talked about the education that he got at MECC. This training doesn't just qualify people to become a solar installer, but it also sets them up to do a lot of other things in the electrical trades. And what Anthony wants to do is he wants to stay with God Electric. He enjoys it. He wants to get his 4-year journeyman's license and become a master electrician. So we're pretty proud of Anthony. They love him at God Electric. He's a hard worker and he's enthusiastic and he really seems to enjoy it. And he envisions for himself a career doing this kind of thing, working with solar. And so he's a great example for other young people in the area. I'm sure you agree, Matt.
Absolutely. And really that is something that we see a lot with our students is they become advocates for their programs. And um, you know, I always say, look at your audience. If your audience is someone who you're trying to show the benefits to in a setting like a newspaper or something, you know, our students will show them, here's what I've earned, here's what I do, here's my hopes, here's my dreams, here's what I'm going towards. But they had the unique ability when they would go talk to students, someone young or someone getting into it, they would show them, and this is what I always try to tell my instructors, what sells your program to a high school student is not, well, I get, you know, I got this degree or I got this or I got that or I make this much money. A lot of times they don't understand that. But when you say, you know what, I bought a brand new bass boat, I bought a brand new side by side, I brought this, that's what sells it for a student. When they realize they can get the things that they want in life from a career, that's what helps them. And so that's really been beneficial. Next slide, please. And Eric, I'll go ahead and let you kind of mention a little more on that, and then we'll go on.
Yeah, so I think Matt covered a lot of this. There was the internship program was both on the job training, but also I think a week or two of classroom work at Mountain Empire Community College. And not only did the students get $17 an hour for the work they did on rooftops, but we paid them a stipend. Was it $500 for attending the classroom work? So they got that. They got some help with transportation. They got tools and safety equipment. Like it was a very good alternative to say working at a grocery store over the summer. And as Matt said, it set them up for a career where they could earn the money to get the things that they wanted. Believe it or not, we've had about 40 apprentices and interns since we set up this program in 2022. And they've gone on to do a variety of things, but many of them have stayed in the field.
Absolutely. And it's truly been beneficial. And, so where do we go from here? So next slide, please. And really, this is the opportunity that we have for the future. actually received approval about 2 weeks ago from our state engineering firm because of course, we are a community college, so we have to look at the state policies and different things. We're putting solar panels on our campus. That work should start this fall. We hope to have another cohort. Now, we may not have the ability to do some high school students because they're going to be in class 2, but we're hoping we can utilize our students again in that internship that maybe some of them that don't have jobs that could help out. We have a much larger Sparky 2.0. We have increased capacity. That was one of the pictures that you saw earlier on, where we had our instructor talking with 2 students at a much bigger Sparky. It's accessible from the outside. That helps students and helps us show solar panels and how they work and what they're do. And of course, they can see it used a lot. We've added some things such as a battery backup class. With Helene coming through our region and some other things, we saw extensive power outages. We've had several flooding events after Helene and of course during Helene. And, battery backup resiliency has been a big focus on us. And so we see that a lot that's what people are saying they want. That's the demand we're seeing. And of course, it's something that is unique. I've always said we have been the energy leader in Southwest Virginia for many years. And we want to reclaim that title, whether it be through solar or other ways. But we really would like solar to be that title claimer to allow us to have that energy independence and control some of your own energy. As I mentioned about increasing power costs and other things, that's been instrumental for us is how do we build in that resiliency within our communities and within our neighborhoods. And as a result, we're looking at solar and solar too. Our first one was mainly grid tied. This one is more battery backup driven. And how do we build a solar panel system that can operate independently of the grid and be able to manage that. And so I really appreciate your time. I thank you all for what you've done and what you allowing us to present this story, but also to allow us to just share some of the good things that we've been able to do in our area and in our part of Virginia and the United States, of just the things that we've been able to do to help solar along. And Eric, I'll let you kind of finish it up.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone too. Thank IREC again. Hope you found this useful. Happy to answer questions at the end. In the meantime, after the webinar, there's a video that I would highly recommend to you all. It's only about 5 minutes long. It's got interviews with at least one intern, with some folks at the schools, and shows some great landscape in Southwest Virginia, shows some folks at work. It'll really give you a vivid sense of the excitement behind this internship program.
That's awesome. Thank you, Eric and Matthew, for that great information. Gwen also noted in the chat that we will include the video when we send out the post-webinar email to the attendees, so that information will go out. Ella, I will turn it over to you for your presentation on accelerating clean energy transformation through tribal partnerships. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Janelle. Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time today, and a big thank you to the IREC team for the opportunity to present on this webinar. I'm Ella Nielsen. I am the Programs Director at the American Solar Energy Society, and you're welcome to do the next slide. I'll share a brief agenda. So I'll go through what the American Solar Energy Society, or ASES for short, is all about. Then we'll dive into our history and impact. I'll talk a bit about our membership and solar community, and we'll go into some of our program highlights. Lastly, I will hand it over to my colleague, Sarah Towns, for her presentation on accelerating clean energy transformation through tribal partnerships. Next slide, please. So the American Solar Energy Society is a 501c3 nonprofit that advocates for 100% renewable energy and sustainable living by sharing information, events, and resources to cultivate community and power progress. Our mission is to accelerate equitable solar adoption and universal sustainable living by educating and building community. Last year, ASES celebrated its 70th anniversary. We were founded in 1954, the same year Bell Labs patented the first silicon solar cell, which was a breakthrough that sparked the modern solar industry. Driven by commitment or deep commitment to a sustainable future, ASES was established by visionaries who imagined a better path forward after the challenges of the post-war decades back in 1954. So over 70 years later, ASES continues that legacy. We are a community of educators, advocates, and community builders. We're empowering individuals, scientists, and decision makers to accelerate a just transformation to 100% renewable energy. Next slide, please. So a bit about our membership and community. We are a membership-based nonprofit that has over 21,000 members, mainly consisting of solar energy advocates and professionals. I'll dive a bit deeper into our major programs on the next slide, but this particular slide highlights our other programs and communities, and this includes our online community, which is an online platform for all of our members to connect and ask questions about anything solar. We have a Ask a Renewable Energy Expert forum, an introductions forum, a everything solar forum. We have a lot of different opportunities for people to ask questions, comments, if people are hiring or not. And we also have a mentor match program on this platform as well for emerging or young professionals to get involved in the industry. Our technical divisions conduct our outreach and ensure that ASES programs and publications are technically accurate. They bring diverse members with similar interests in order to engage, educate, and grow the community through an exchange of information. So they're the ones that ensure that our Solar Today articles, our presentations for our conferences are all technically accurate. We have regional and student chapters. We have over 39 of them all across the US. They are independent organizations with their own memberships, due structures, board of directors, missions, visions, etc. So they collectively work with ASES to achieve the broader mission of stronger solar and renewable energy communities while also being responsive to local and regional challenges and opportunities. So essentially we have a parent organization called the International Solar Energy Society. They're based in Germany. Then there's ASES, the American Solar Energy Society. We're headquartered here in Boulder, Colorado, but our audience is throughout the US and beyond. And then we have our 39 state chapters in individual states, and they work on more of a local scale. Lastly, we collaborate with over 58 like-minded organizations to help cross-promote all the great things that we're doing and amplify the organization's events, resources, education materials, and more. Next slide, please. Here are some fun photos of the program highlights. This is all of our ASES Solar community, specifically highlighting pictures from our National Solar Conference, our National Solar Tour, Solar Today magazine, and our Zero Emissions Network program. I'll dive into that on the next slide, please. So as mentioned, our major programs include the National Solar Conference, the National Solar Tour, Solar Today magazine, and the Zero Emissions Network program. Regarding the conference, we just hosted the 54th annual conference earlier this month called Solar 2025 in Boulder, Colorado. We're headquartered here, as I mentioned, in Boulder, and we typically host the conference in Colorado on the odd years, so 2025, and then on the even years, we collaborate with one of our regional chapters across the US. So in 2024, we hosted the conference in Washington, D.C. in partnership with the Mid-Atlantic Solar Energy Society and celebrated their 30th anniversary. And next year, we'll be hosting Solar 2026 in Austin, Texas on October 19th through 21st to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Texas Solar Energy Society. This is always such a great in-person gathering for both emerging young professionals, industry technical folks, government people as well. And I really enjoy the conference and seeing so many of you in person. Then the National Solar Tour. This year we're celebrating our 30th anniversary. The National Solar Tour is the largest annual grassroots solar event that includes photovoltaics, passive solar, wind, electric vehicles, sustainability living, and energy first strategies. So essentially, it's an open house that anyone can be a part of. We provide the platform, support, and promotion completely for free for tour organizers. So if anyone that has a sustainability feature or solar in any capacity, they can host a tour that's like a public open house, and you can be a homeowner, a business, in a business, schools, religious institutions, or organizations, and be posted on our National Solar Tour map. Thousands of people attend these tours both in person and virtually, and we always aim for all 50 states to be represented, which we've been doing for so long now. So this year's showcase weekend for the National Solar Tour's 30th anniversary is this October 3rd through 5th. So that's October 3rd's that Friday through Sunday the 5th, as we're kicking off October's Energy Awareness Month. But please note that in-person and virtual tours can take place anytime throughout the year. So please be sure to check out nationalsolartour.org and participate as either a host or an attendee. And Solar Today is our magazine. It's our flagship publication that's been informing and inspiring our community since 1987. We send out 4 issues each year to our 20,000 ASES members in both digital and printed format. And also, we have some of those articles per issue publicly available on our website. It's written by experts from across our professional network. And if anyone is interested, we're always looking for contributors to write for the magazine. It's completely free. And we go through a process of accepting the article pitches and editing them as well. So if you're interested in pitching an article, please email me at info@ases.org, just info at ases.org, and I'll send you the instructions. And then lastly is our Zero Emissions Network program that Sarah Towns, my colleague, is the director of, and we'll talk a bit more about. So I'll hand it over to you, Sarah, to present. Thank you so much, everyone.
Nice. Thanks, Ella. Thank you so much, Janelle and IRAC, for hosting this wonderful event. And thank you, Eric and Matthew, for a super inspiring presentation. It was just wonderful to see the work that you're doing. All right, so I will dive into the story about our work with the tribes. We're going to try to wrap this up in about 13 minutes, so I'm going to breeze through. That will leave lots of time for you all to ask questions and discuss things with the panelists. But here's a quick version of what we went through. So this particular venture started with an outreach phone call from Red Cloud Renewable at Pine Ridge, South Dakota, to ASES, and they had a simple question for us. And that question was, do you have any Native mentors in your mentorship program, or is your staff knowledgeable about Native life such that if we sent students into your mentorship program, they would receive a warm welcome? And unfortunately, our answer had to be no and no. We did not have any Native mentors, and we were not, as a small staff, particularly educated about Native life. But we said we would immediately take action about that, and my fantastic colleague Ella took immediate action on the same day, did some research, sent some links. I read those links the same day and then started doing more research of my own. And the information really jumped out at us, or certainly at me right away, that this community at Pine Ridge was living under great duress. And they're only 5.5 hours away from where I live, and the longevity and health statistics were shocking compared to the community that I live in. And I felt a little bit ashamed of my ignorance of the challenges that this community that's not so far from where I live was living with. And I'm not going to go super deep into all the struggles at Pine Ridge, but it is statistically, Oglala Lakota County is over and over statistically one of the top 3 most impoverished counties in the nation, of which there are 3,123, if I remember correctly. So The poverty is long lasting and very challenging there. So we started, studying, learning more about Native life. And one of the things that first came up was, well, what can we do to, we're starting to educate ourselves. Ella was doing this outreach for Native mentors. What else can we do? And we learned that they were building these wonderful dome houses. And so we said, well, why don't we come out and we'll talk about, we'll come out and see you guys. And maybe we can talk about some solar for these dome houses. We were starting to think about that. And so basically when I was thinking about this presentation and what I might offer that could be useful to everybody, I tried to isolate some principles that I have learned in this process that I think are useful in doing outreach to communities. And specifically to tribal communities. So Michelle, if you might forward the slide for me. So one of the principles is that history is present. History isn't something that's just sitting in a book at Pine Ridge. The very long, very shocking history of what that community has had to face, systemic oppression, is a shocking history that I won't take the time to go into depth about here. But in my opinion, to go into Pine Ridge and have zero understanding of the history and not to have taken in that history, not just on an intellectual level, but on a little bit of an emotional level, to say, okay, what would it be like if I personally, like, let's say my great-grandfather, the father of my grandfather, not some remote, distant, historical figure that has no meaning to me, but the person who raised my grandfather, whom I love. What would it be like if they had had to face something like what we see in this picture, which is the US government? And I am ashamed to say, I literally did not even know this when I started this research. I did not know this history. And that to me I didn't feel good about that. Anyway, so what I learned is that the US government systematically decided to try to exterminate all the buffalo because that was the primary food source of the Plains Indians. And the Plains Indians were they were the most militarily successful opponents of the federal government, of the US federal government. And so they were afraid of them and they wanted them subdued. And one of the ways they did that was by exterminating the buffalo. And it was just a very small herd that was saved, and by a small group of people that said, hey, let's, keep these 20 buffalo as pets, and all our buffalo today are descended from that remaining herd. But this picture shows you one visceral sense of what these folks had to deal with. And the water sources where they were forced to live were poisoned by natural mineral contamination and then further poisoned by mining activities. So anyway, the history goes on and on. In my opinion, to successfully work in a community like this, it is important. It matters to know the history, and it matters to take it in on an emotional level and to understand that these people are living with the results of this history today. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, another principle, I think listening can be more productive than talking, especially in a community that is very different than my own. I will immediately be the first to say that I don't always practice what I preach. I'm a talkative person, and sometimes when I was nervous, I would talk too much, and I noticed it, and that's part of how I came to this principle. But to settle down and to really, really listen deeply and learn, as people are telling stories about their lives, as they're just sharing, as they're just ordering dinner, listen and learn, because people are living in a way in Pine Ridge that is very different than anybody who is living in Boulder, Colorado. This slide here is a gentleman who is 70 years old, and he's one of the elders at Pine Ridge, and he was one of the individuals that Henry Red Cloud wanted to help. It gets, 20 below zero quite frequently in the winter in South Dakota. This slide that you're seeing is a difficult place to live in 20 below zero. So listen and learn. Next slide, please. Thank you. So visiting is a wonderful thing. was our executive director, Carly Rixham's idea. Ella and I jumped in the car, stopped at Carhenge. I definitely recommend to everyone to visit Carhenge. It's very entertaining. Go see people where they live and walk in their shoes by walking around their community. And it's a wonderful way to make a more real human connection, and it's fun. Next slide, please. Especially if you're traveling with someone as fun as Ella, then it's really fun. Okay, this slide in a way is kind of the essence and the heart of what I'd like to communicate today. And that is that to go to a place and to recognize the strengths that are there, to recognize what this culture of people do really well, learn from it, appreciate it, soak it in. You see the hardships, and that's kind of pretty obvious in a place like Pine Ridge. But if you pay attention, the strengths are just everywhere, shining up at you. I don't have time on this call to go deeply into in my opinion, the many just wonderful and spectacular essences of Lakota culture. But just to hit a couple highlights, the language is delightful. To listen to people converse in Lakota is a delightful thing. The pride and the joy that people are taking in resurrecting that language and making sure that it doesn't pass out of existence is really fun to witness and to participate in. You just go in there with your attempts at saying the words right, and people are patient and they appreciate it. Learning songs in Lakota, it's fun and it's cool to be a part of it. It's an honor to be allowed to be a part of it. The singing is just wild. Anybody that sat next to a circle of Lakota people singing Lakota songs, get your hair tie on, because it's going to blow your hair back. It's so fun to witness and so fun to listen to and be a part of. The storytelling is a tremendously deep tradition there, and it's very different. Like, close the mouth, listen. It is done in a different way than it is done in other parts of the United States. And to really take these stories in and to recognize it for the honor that it is to be able to listen and learn is just a joy. It's a true joy. And it's a great way to connect with people just by listening to their stories. And then, as you have the courage to share your own stories. I shared some of mine, and that was not as easy as you'd think. One last thing I want to say about this, and this is my opinion. It doesn't represent the opinion of the American Solar Energy Society or anybody else. This is Sarah Towns' opinion, that the tribes are potentially poised to lead the renewable energy revolution in the United States. They are poised to make a faster transition to 100% renewable than any other communities in the United States. And I know that there are some cutting edge communities in California and other places who have already really pushed that envelope. And I just acknowledge that I'm not super educated, but I do know that they're out there and that they've done amazing work. But what I'm trying to say is that tribes have, in my experience, tremendous value placed on energy sovereignty in general, but energy sovereignty specifically, for many reasons, one of which is all the damage that's been done by the energy companies on native lands. But they're excited about it. There's enthusiasm. There is a sense of possibility, a sense of purpose, a sense of unity. The TREC, the Tribal Renewable Energy Coalition, is doing fantastic, amazing work with 14 tribes. Other tribes are knocking on the door to get in. Land use is very different on reservations than it is in other places in the United States. And there's ways that you can make solar happen if you work with the people, not against them or not for them, but with them and actually underneath them, making sure that they are the leaders. Renewable energy can happen much more systemically and much more quickly on tribal lands with much more dramatic results because of the level of energy poverty that is currently there. As you saw on the previous slide, it can really transform people's lives to have access to resilient, consistent, reliable, affordable energy. A lot of people on the reservations are burning kerosene, they're burning propane. There's a million downsides to that. It's unhealthy, it's expensive, it's dirty. And so something like solar can be way more transformative at Pine Ridge than it is in other communities where the energy is already at least reliable, at least clean at their site. it's not necessarily clean where it's coming from, but it's clean where they live. So transformation for energy is huge on the reservations. Next slide, please. And I've been given permission to go a little bit over time, but I'll still try to leave lots of time for you guys to have some dialogue. Storytelling connects and heals. I've already talked about that, but it's the stories at Pine Ridge are profound, and people have the guts to really share them. And I recommend to anyone who has the honor to visit a tribal land to partake in listening to the storytelling if you have that opportunity, and if you have the opportunity to share some of your own relationship to Native culture, because everybody has some relationship, probably, whether near or far. Next slide, please. Oh, and this, oh, sorry, before we switch, that I was just wanted to say that last slide, there is a, thank you. That's a dream catcher that was given to me by someone named Justin. And Justin came up to us when we were at the site of the Wounded Knee Massacre, where there's a memorial. And he had made that dream catcher, and he, we spent quite a bit of time with Justin, and he told us the story of his family, and I have not forgotten a word of it. And I feel connected to Justin, even though I haven't seen him since that time. And part of my commitment to this work is that I want to be able to go back and knock on Justin's door and say that we accomplished something. So Justin's stories affected me, and it's a wonderful way to learn. Next slide, for real this time. Thank you. So one of the ways to empower people is to share the connections that you have. We might not realize the power that we have in the relationships that we form as we, for people that went to college, for people that have worked in certain industries, for people that grew up in certain areas. We just take it for granted that we know people. People on the reservation might not know people. And when there are resources to be had, a lot of times people are super excited to be invited into tribal culture for many reasons. So it's mutually beneficial. And to share those relationships can really bring huge benefit on both sides. There's nothing about it that's a one-way street. Next slide, please. And one example of that sharing is, this is a gathering of people. This is the Coalition for Green Capital team. They live in Washington, D.C. They're an amazing bunch of people. Two of their highest directors are here on this slide. They came out to Pine Ridge, they visited the reservation, they visited Red Cloud Renewable, and they drove out to the site of the Wachoni Training Center, where Henry Red Cloud's dream is to build his next training center. And they physically saw the land where Henry wants to build the facility. And Coalition for Green Capital is a leader they are the driver of the National Clean Investment Fund, one of the three main drivers. And they have access to tremendous resources. But they would never have known about this if we hadn't made the connection. And so making those connections is a wonderful thing. It's fun, and it has real meaning and real value. Next slide, please. Hand back the power. This slide is an EPA presentation that I was invited to be a panelist on in Rapid City, South Dakota. There was quite a few people there. You're not seeing the whole crowd, but it was, pretty packed room. And there's a gentleman on the far wall that's wearing a baseball cap with white writing on it. I don't know if you can see it. He's sitting next to Henry, but that's Cody Two Bears. And I was asked a question, because I've done this tribal work. I was asked a question about tribe's relationship with the green energy transformation and the tribe's relationship with the EPA. And I saw that Cody was sitting in the room, and I'm not going to take the time to tell you Cody's background and pedigree in this work, but Cody is one of the national leaders in renewable energy in this country, not just among tribal people, but in this country. Cody Two Bears is a huge player, and he has a lifetime of experience in this work. And so instead of answering the question myself, me who's 2 years in, I said, hey, with your permission, I asked the regional director of the EPA, I said, hey, I'd like to see if Cody would be willing to answer that question for us. So I called on Cody, and Cody stood up and gave an amazing answer that I could never have given, because I didn't grow up in, Cannonball like he did. So don't have the leadership experience on tribal reservations that he does. So whenever there's an opportunity, hand back the power, because that's where it belongs. If you're working in somebody else's community, at every chance, hand the power to them if you're not from that community. Next slide, please. Relationships are the foundation of success. That means everything. It's the money can come and go, the contracts can come and go, the political climate can come and go, a whole lot of staffing can come and go. But if the relationships are solid, the mission will succeed because the people will see to it that it does together. If the relationships are not solid and trusting and honest, there's a very good chance that nothing will succeed. Even if the project succeeds on the outside, it might not succeed, with the deeper mission that it was intended to. So my philosophy is the relationships come first. Next slide, please. You with me, Michelle? There we go. Thanks. Meet in the middle culturally. I won't take the time to read all this, but what I put here, these are quotes from the contract that we made with Red Cloud Renewable. And if you do take a minute to read it, you'll see that we drew from traditional Lakota culture in drawing up our actual contract. Some people just really made fun of me for this, and I got a lot of pushback from certain areas, but I stood my ground because I believe that you have to meet in the middle. You don't just impose one culture on another. When you're working with two cultures, you make them meet in the middle. So we took some problem-solving tools from traditional Lakota problem-solving methodologies and we wrote it into the contract. That's one example of meeting in the middle culturally. And there has to be an intention to do that for it to happen, because otherwise the dominant power structure, which is capitalist America, will absolutely impose its way of doing things on less, as Cody would say, low status communities. That's the term that he uses. And it's really satisfying. You learn, and I don't know, it just makes for better contracts. Next slide, please. So I'm going to breeze through these because I want to wrap up here. These are the domes that RCR had already built, and we wrote a $500,000 grant to get solar for those domes, and our grant was chosen, and then it was terminated when we were a year into the work. But this particular site walk Pomni, we were able to get a system up, and these domes are amazing. They're super, super energy efficient, and they're beautiful on the inside, and it's a wonderful project. And to have them, and that's part of why I say that, the renewable energy revolution can be led by the tribes, because imagine building one of these houses in, New York City or somewhere else. It would be a lot more difficult to do, but you can make a bunch of these and they're so efficient, and you can put solar on them and be living a very sustainable lifestyle in a short amount of time. Next slide, please. I'm just going to be moving through. This is Leo, one of the world's largest smiles. So much fun to talk to. Great storyteller. He's doing some installation at Wakapamni. Next slide, please. This is Dylan Tobacco, who was a Marine for many years, worked on electronics, came home to Pine Ridge where he's from, and is wanting to do energy work at Pine Ridge. There was a whole bunch of installations that were planned and funded through work that we did through the Solar for All initiative that has also been terminated by the administration. Very disappointing. But here he is the crew lead installing the solar for our project called Project Tioshpae. Next slide, please. This is the team. Great team. Marie Kills Warrior is the project manager. And the bunch of, these are newer trainees that were installing this particular solar system. Next slide, please. Looks like we're missing a slide. Try next slide after that. I'm seeing, there they are. There's the team right there. Really happy to get the solar up. Those are 3.5 kilowatt systems that are going to be powering those two domes, 2 of the 3 domes. So anyway, it was wonderful to get some solar up. It was a huge honor and a huge privilege to work at Pine Ridge. One of my interns named Joey Kropf was intending to join this call, but he texted me that he was having trouble getting on the link, which is basically my fault because it was we were slow to get these things organized only in the last 24 hours. So, but the interns were fantastic helping us to make this project happen. Joey did a bunch of research about EV charging station over the summer. That when they were done, he and Rohith's work was vetted by super professionals in the field, and their findings were validated by these professionals. These are Joey and Rohit, our undergrads. So we have the data to show both the financial savings that are anticipated for the recipients of the solar, and also the greenhouse gas emissions averted. Okay, next slide. And it was just fun, you guys. It was just really fun to do this project. So with that, I'm going to wrap up so that we have plenty of time for Q&A. Thanks everybody so much for the work that you're all doing. I looked through the chat and saw all the wonderful places that people are doing this work, and it's really a privilege to be part of this community of people. So with that, I will close. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and Ella from our ASES partners. One thing I heard throughout the webinar from Matthew, Eric, Ella, and Sarah was the focus on strong partnerships. And as you know, that's one of the pillars of the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance. So that indeed is a necessary component in a more holistic workforce development for any industry. So I don't think we have any questions in the Q&A. If we had to, Gwen has already answered one, and actually we have one that just came in. Yusuf said, thank you so much for putting this together. I saw that registration gets you a recording of this. Will that be sent to our emails? Yes, it will. You all will receive this presentation in a few days in your email box. So feel free to check. And if you do not receive this presentation, please email IREC and let us know. Feel free to add additional questions in the Q&A option from our presenters. Is it anything else, any burning epiphany that you have had since your presentation ended that you would like to share with our participants? If not, I will give you back a few minutes in your day. We thank you all for joining the National Clean Energy Workforce Alliance webinar and hope that you have a fantastic day. Thank you.